Hello everyone. My name is Jessica. I'm the Chief Returning Officer for the University of Alberta Students' Union. Welcome to the second SUBStage Forum. The races that will be contested for today's forum are Vice President Operations and Finance, Vice President External, Vice President Academic, and the Gateway Plebiscite Yes side. Thank you so much for spending your lunchtime with us. The format for the forum will be, each candidate will get a 2-minute speaking turn. It'll be followed by an opportunity to ask their opponents a question, 30 seconds, followed by a response, which will be 1 minute long, followed by a rebuttal, also 1 minute long. After the debate is over, candidates will have the opportunity to answer audience questions with 1 minute responses, and the mic is just in front of me if you want to line up for that. Okay, so we'll start off first with the Vice President Operations and Finance race. We have 3 candidates for VP Ops 5, and we'll start with Tamer Malik for 2-minute speaking turn.
Yay, Tamer!
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tamer Malik, and I'm running to be your Vice President of Operations and Finance. My take on Ops 5 is focused on 3 goals: improving the businesses, strengthening the student groups, and developing innovative strategies and services for SU programming. So for SU businesses, not only we have to focus on the healthy options and the quality of food, but also to support the staff members, so they can work efficiently on conducting that business so that we can increase our profits, and at the same time create an experience for the students they enjoy the businesses that they're proud of. Another integral part of our Students' Union are our student groups. We so love. In alignment with SU's policy of investing in students' interest, we need to increase grants and provide more resources to them so they can conduct those events. So the events we so dearly love. And apart from improving the existing infrastructure and the usual duties of the VP OSFI, we need to be creative and develop innovative strategies and services. And I promise you, if I'm elected, I will work on an SU app for your smartphone that will make your life a bit more convenient, with features like locating the nearest microwave and reporting it if it's not working, to reading your favorite newspaper, the Gateway, on the app, or accessing one of the services like your I Have Plan on the app. If
15 seconds.
I have 15 seconds left, so I'll probably end shamelessly by promoting my campaign video, which I released right now. Do go check out my page, Tamer Malik, and do share that video. It's probably one of the best videos you'll ever see. I hope so. And I hope on March 2nd and 3rd,
Thank you, Tamer.
you make the right choice and vote for me. Thank you so much.
The next candidate for a 2-minute speaking turn is Hassan Bure.
Hello everyone, my name is Hassan. I'm an international student from Turkey, and I'm going to be your Vice President of Operations and Finance. So I built my platform around the idea of connecting people and creating a value for students in our university. So everything that I say, that I'm going to say, is on connecting people and creating value for students. So the first one, the first platform idea that I have is student discount services. So we are students in the university. So we have a lot of businesses in campus and off campus. So if I ask you guys, if you guys know any place that has student discounts for university, probably gonna say a couple places, but not much. So my plan is creating a website or a hub for students, so that students can go to that website and hub, and then know about the businesses in the university and see the discounts and then what they sell for students. The second idea, we have a huge multicultural diversity in our university. So we need to take an advantage from it. So how are we going to do it? For instance, bringing a heritage festival to university, or having weekly cultural days in the university, so that we can connect all those new students in the university and all those students to the university by integrating them. And so that with that we can actually make a profit for student union, and we can increase our revenues and we can connect all those people and integrate all those people to university. It's not going to cost money. If anyone have a question, I can explain that. It's not going to cost money, but at the same time, we're going to earn and increase our revenues and profits. The other idea that I have is that the other idea is I want to look deeply to the businesses because my position is okay. I'll skip this. So again, as I said, okay. Last, I want to say, student union is for students. Like we are here for students. All of the candidates we are here, they will work for us. So you need to make sure that you pick the right candidate.
And your last candidate for Vice President of Operations and Finance is Robin Patches.
Hey, Robin!
Hello everyone, my name is Robin Patches and I want to be your next VP Operations and Finance. My platform is divided into 3 tangible, implementable ideas that I think are the core of this race, is actual implementable ideas. First is fresh and healthy food options. To do that, I have 3 main things. I want to revitalize Le Express, to have hot food options be the center of the focus. Well, there's currently hot food options, but I'd like even more. Second is, I'd like an online healthy food guide, which would help students be able to select what they like to eat based on certain dietary restrictions, making it easier for students. Second is, I believe thoroughly that if a business accepts one-card cash, they should accept meal plan as well, and I plan to advocate for that. The second overarching theme of my platform is sustainable infrastructure. Now, what does this mean? I believe that students' union facilities should appeal to student needs. My prime example is the power plant building. Dewey's is excellent, but I think there's a large opportunity there. And I want to take, if elected, I want to poll to students what that business should be, what that building should look like. I also want to ensure that SU facilities are accessible and affordable by student groups. Lastly, I want to improve staff support at Dewey's. I want to make sure that staffs have the tools to provide the best possible service to students that they serve. Lastly, as we've seen this year, advocacy is available and ready to be done in the VP Operations portfolio. I want to tackle the issue of student safety. In discussions with students before this campaign, I found that students do not feel, not all students feel safe 100% of the time. Specifically in Faculty St. John, it takes 30 minutes or more for a protective services officer to arrive. In residence, theft is becoming a problem. People don't feel safe leaving their items in common kitchens. And in speaking with many women before this, I found that some feel the risk of sexual harassment in the gym, and I want to run an awareness campaign. I feel I'm the most qualified to run this, have this position, and I hope you vote Robin Patches for VP Ops 5. Thank you.
Okay, so next candidates will have 30 seconds to ask each other a question. So Tamer, you have 30 seconds to ask your opponents a question.
As an operation finance candidate, you have to be very thorough with your platform, as well as your, you need to understand the position really well. So my questions for my candidates are, it's a very simple, basic question. How much are your SU fees, and how much of that is dedicated to the dedicated fee unit?
Okay, Hassan, you have 1 minute to respond, followed by Robin.
So right now we are currently paying for $39 for membership fee, and $43 it goes to student union. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah, you got it!
Hassan is correct. In fact, it's $39.05 goes towards Students Union membership fee, and it's $43.19 is the Students Union dedicated fee. So yes, you are correct. Thank you for the question, Tamer.
Tamer, you have 1 minute for a rebuttal.
1 minute rebuttal.
I'm glad we got candidates who know their content really well. We should all be proud of ourselves. Congrats. Thank you.
Hassan, now you have 30 seconds to ask your opponents a question.
Hello everyone again. What do you think about the job, the position that we are running for? What is the purpose? Is like what are we running for?
First to answer will be Tamer, followed by Robin.
The position we are running for is Operation Finance, but it's just not that. We have a lot of people here having lunch in this building right now. So I actually spend a lot of time in this building. I do recognize a lot of you here. A lot of us spend the majority of our time in this building because this is our building. This is a Students' Union building. When you hear Students' Building, what I think of it is as a home. So the position I'm running for that does not only entail that I have to improve the businesses, but I have to make sure that the building you are in right now, that you always feel at home, and the services you provide are always met to your standards. For every dollar you pay to the Students' Union, you meet
15 seconds.
the resultant value, you get the value you deserve for that one. Basically, yeah. Sorry.
I believe it's a simple answer. The role of the VP Operations Finance is to identify student needs and then evolve the offerings that the student union has to ensure those meet student needs. But this year, as we've seen too, there's also room for advocacy. So once those needs are identified, and once the businesses are formed to meet those specific needs, the VP Operations Finance has the flexibility to assist the rest of the exec and pursue their own advocacy efforts to make the Students' Union and the University of Alberta a better place for all.
Sonia, you have 1 minute for a rebuttal.
Thank you again. It was all right. So basically, we have 10 million budget, right? And then we had 11 million budget as a student union. So basically, our job is that we have to manage, and then they will all right, by the way. We have to manage all the businesses. We have to manage that money, and then we have to operate all the businesses we have. But the other thing is that I believe whatever we spend, every dollar we spend, it should work for students. Because we are here for students. We are student union, right? So again, every dollar we spend, it should work for students, and we have to make sure that whatever we pay, whatever we do in our job, we have to make sure it is valuable, it is reasonable for students.
15 seconds.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Robin, now you have 1 minute to ask your opponents a question, or 30 seconds.
Certainly, thank you. So I'd like to shift the tone a little bit. We've been talking a lot about operations finance roles. I'd like to ask my fellow candidates what they see as the biggest challenge that faces whoever's elected into the operations and finance role is next year. This can be however they see as an operations role or something different completely. Thank you.
Okay, Hassan, you have 1 minute to respond, followed by Tamer.
Hello everyone. The challenge, I believe, okay, the job that we're gonna do is simple. It's not simple, but it's basically the job that everyone is doing, right? But the challenge would be serving the students, because when you serve the student, it is not just about when you do something for students. It is again, as I said, whatever you do, it's like the idea you have to work. You're working for students, and then everyone looks at our faces, right? Whatever we do, it should be for students. So I guess this is the biggest challenge, that when you work and you have to focus, you should focus on students, and then you have to work for them. I guess this is the biggest challenge, I'd say. Thank you.
I think the biggest challenge is over the next few years, as you know, the minimum wage is rising. So that's going to put a lot of pressure on the SU's budget. So we need to make sure that the burden is not shifted towards students. We already have a fee increase coming up next year for the students, $3 per semester over the next 3 years. So we need to make sure our businesses are doing well, so they can complement our budget with their extra revenue. And on top of that, we need to make sure our services are still efficient while cost effective. So that's the biggest challenge next year, not to shift burden on the students, not to be like the university, every year we're gonna increase our fees. We shouldn't do that. We should set the example instead and be like, instead of increasing your fees, what we can do is implement better practices and find other ways to raise revenue. Thank you.
1 minute for rebuttal.
Yes, so I feel the biggest challenges facing OpsFi next year aren't even the whole business side of things. So I learned in my research this year that UPass and Health Dental actually fall underneath VP Student Life and OpsFi. So as you've seen from Mr. Hanwell's platform and some of the other dialogues going on, UPass is up for renewal. That'll be a large challenge of OpsFi next year, ensuring that not only do we get an affordable price for students, but that we negotiate with the city and the other UPass schools to be able to achieve that goal. Secondly, I also see coordinating the Meyer Horwitz renovations as a huge challenge. Being able to coordinate the fundraising behind that as well, not specifically the rentals, but the fundraising. Being able to work with the people that are going to be in that fundraising efforts and putting together that team as integral, because that is happening, rentals are going forward, it's in the next year's budget. So I see those two things, Meyer Horwitz renos and then negotiating the UPass as the largest challenges and most unique challenges facing next year's VP OpsFi. Thank you.
Those are 3 candidates for Vice President Operations and Finance. We'll move on to the Vice President Academic race. We'll start with Tom Patrick. There are 2 candidates, by the way. Tom Patrick is the first candidate, and you'll have 2 minutes for a speaking turn.
Thank you. So my name is Tom Patrick, as was probably heard by that. I'm running for Vice President Academic. My big 3 points that I want to push when I fill this role are textbooks and making sure that they do not hamper affordability for students, quality of instruction and new and different ways of achieving that, and I have certain ideas about representation as well. Now we have a number of forums over the coming week, and so I'm not going to try to cover all my platform points today. Today I'm just going to talk about textbooks. So the problems with textbooks, they're often very expensive. You can spend $150 on a textbook, no problem. You just want the online version, great, you get $20 off. It's only $130 now. That's absolutely crazy, especially when a lot of this material isn't directly relevant to the course, maybe it's repeated in notes. This is absolutely unacceptable, and it does not justify the cost for students. Luckily, a lot of resources already exist online that could be utilized. We have an amazing Be Booksmart campaign that promotes students to think about textbook options before they spend money. We have instructor awards that go out to professors who make an effort to save students money, as well as the provincial government, and Campus Alberta is a big fan of development of open educational resources, which are great potential for replacement for textbooks that would be free to students. So my plan is to expand the use of open educational resources in classrooms, ideally eliminating textbooks from the most commonly taken intro-level courses. As well, I want to put a couple of questions onto the Universal Student Rating of Instruction. So those surveys sent out for every class. The 2 questions I want on it are, number 1, how often did you use this textbook? And number 2, overall, was this textbook excellent and relevant? The full plan that I have for this is available on my platform, on my website, tpforvp.com. Voting is on March 2nd and 3rd. Again, my name is Tom Patrick, and I'm running for Vice President Academic. Thank you guys for your time. Thank you for coming out.
The next candidate for Vice President Academic is Marina Bannister. You have 2 minutes for a speaking turn.
Hi everyone, my name is Marina Bannister and I'm running for Vice President Academic. Leading up to this campaign, I spent a lot of time meeting with students to learn about the issues that are important to them. I learned that strict requirements on course loads in professional programs like nursing, pharmacy, and engineering have adverse mental health effects on students. I learned that a drama student can't obtain a business minor, and an education student can't have a women's studies specialization because it falls outside their faculty. I also learned that 23% of departments don't have student representation on their department at all. We need to allow students to complete their degree at a pace that works for them. Not only because allowing more flexibility has the potential to improve students' mental health, but it also allows us to attract more diverse students from different life experiences, making education more accessible for those who would otherwise have been excluded. We need to encourage interdisciplinary program options so that students can receive a more well-rounded educational experience and are better prepared for life outside university that requires them a diverse set of skills and knowledge. We need to give students the platform to have a say at every level of governance, so their voice is heard in everything from which classes are offered to which professors get tenure. I'm running for Vice President Academic because students deserve a strong voice in their education, and I'm the only candidate with the experience and track record to make sure your concerns are heard. I've sat on every level of student governance, from my department association to Senate, making me the most qualified candidate in this race. If elected, I know I'll be able to jump right in and immediately start representing student interests to university administration. Students are experts in their own experience, and it's our responsibility as elected representatives to give them the platform to speak for themselves. On March 2nd and 3rd, vote for me, Marina Bannister, for your Vice President Academic.
Tom, you have 30 seconds to ask your opponent a question.
Hello, thank you for letting me go first again. So my point is about one of my opponent's platform points that I'm hoping they can expand on. One thing they say they're interested in is telling the university to base pay increases to professors more heavily on the USRI. To confirm a couple of things, currently the USRI, which is Universal Student Rating of Instruction, is the only way teaching abilities of a faculty member are evaluated, as well as when they went online 2 years ago, there was a huge drop in completion rate. A lot of administrators will say that this is the worst time to place more
30
emphasis
seconds
on
is up.
this.
What's your question?
It is, what is the plan to actually tell administrators that these are more important when recently they hugely decreased in response rate? Thank you.
Marina, you have 1 minute to respond.
Thank you for the question. So interestingly enough, the USRI, which is what my opponent is talking about, has in fact seen a decrease in response rates. In fact, from my experience sitting on my department council, I've actually learned that when professors take the extra time to encourage people to fill out this form in class, responses are actually comparable to the forms that they used to fill out in person. I think teaching quality is extremely important, and we need to advocate to the Faculty Evaluation Committee to make sure that those USRI scores are included in the metrics when the professors are determined to get pay increases or tenure based off their teaching quality. You can read more about my explanation at my platform, votemarina.ca. Thank you for the question.
Tom, you now have 1 minute for rebuttal.
Thank you. Two comments on something that my opponent said. USRIs already are largely considered when instructors get merit-based pay increases. So is this really the best way to ensure quality of instruction, knowing that this is going to be an uphill battle every step of the way? Will the university listen when we tell them how they should pay their staff? I think that's debatable. The Vice President Academic has a million things that they can be focusing on at any point in time. I personally do not think that fighting uphill battles with administrators is worth it when there are low-hanging fruit and other ways that we can ensure quality of instruction. Thank you.
Marina, you have 30 seconds now to ask your opponent a question.
In your platform, you pointed out that student representation is, quote, generally good, but comes up lacking in a few key areas, but you don't explain what those areas are. Where in representation of students where in student representation are students specifically lacking, and why do you think that is? Specifically, what resources will you provide to encourage student representation?
Tom, you have 1 minute to respond.
Thank you. My platform was a bit slow to be uploaded, the full platform that is. I have published it last night, so you can now get the full answers to those questions. Specifically things like how Students' Council can increase membership fees by $10 a year. We can approve this in one vote, and we don't actually have to talk to students before doing it. I think that is an area where we're lacking. Often operational difficulties hamper student advocacy groups from being as effective as they can possibly be. For example, the Arts Faculty Association went under within the last year, and they're making an amazing rebound now, but there was certainly a time that they were not able to provide adequate advocacy. So these are some of the areas where I think they are coming up lacking. Some of the resources I plan on providing are a renewed focus on training leadership at all student representatives, as well as like an explanation of what the best practices are, all the support that they need to do the best advocacy for students. Thank you.
Marina, you have 1 minute for rebuttal.
I think the Students' Union needs to be investing more in ground level governance. What I mean by that is strengthening our department associations. If I'm elected, I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to create a toolkit in collaboration with faculty associations and Discover Governance to send to every department that currently does not have student representation. Secondly, the representation groups that do exist are treated more like student associations than department associations or faculty associations. I think this does them a disservice. If elected, I'm going to work with every department association to make sure they have guaranteed permanent spots on their department councils, because those are the groups that decide which professors get tenure or which classes are offered. And we need to make sure students are represented at every level of governance, from the bottom to the top.
Those are your two candidates for Vice President Academic. So next we'll move on to the Gateway Plebiscite Yes side, and representing the plebiscite is Beth Mansell. She has 2 minutes to talk about what they're running.
Hi everyone, so yeah, I'm Beth Mansell. I'm the Gateway's Executive Director, and this year the Gateway is up for its mandatory plebiscite question, which is asked every 5 years. So this plebiscite question isn't asking for a fee increase or anything like that. The fee is going to be staying exactly the same. So currently students are paying $3.39 per semester, and what that fee goes towards is paying things like our student journalists, their salaries, and also our print costs. You're probably wondering why the Gateway is important for the average student on campus. Well, even if you're not picking up the Gateway every week or you're not reading us online, we're still important. Things that our student journalists are able to do is report on and investigate all levels of the U of A governance structure. So things like the Students' Union, all the way through to the Board of Governors and things like that. And what this does is it holds all those levels of government accountable and adds a level of transparency to the decisions and actions that they're making. So things like tuition, we're able to report on that, and those are things that affect all students. Secondly, we're the only group on campus that has the resources to be able to tell student experience stories. For example, in December, a refugee student from Syria arrived at the U of A, and the Gateway was there to be able to do an in-depth feature story on that student, and it was one of our most read articles of the semester. Apart from that, the Gateway is also a really great resource on campus for students to be able to come and volunteer and develop their writing voice and their writing skills. Even if you don't want to go into something like journalism, this is a really, really great resource that you can come to, and it will help you out on your academic papers, developing your voice, things like that. It helps with things like public speaking. So yeah, visit our Facebook page, Vote Yes for the Gateway, and our website, yesgateway.com, to find out why a free and independent student press is important for a healthy campus community. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. So the next race that'll be up is the Vice President External race. We have 3 candidates this year, and first for a 2-minute speaking turn is Patrick Kahina.
Hi, so my name is Patrick Kahina, and I'm running to be your next Vice President External of the U of A. Now, one thing that really motivates me to run for this race is the fact that education, post-secondary education specifically, should not be a death sentence for those that want to achieve it. I believe that post-secondary education needs to return to the base that it used to be, a way out of poverty, a way to move up in the social ladder, a way for people, for children especially, to have a better life than their parents. And that's the reason why my parents came to this country. I want to make it possible so that a student doing a 5-year or 4-year degree at the U of A doesn't have to graduate with an average of $28,000 of debt. This postpones milestones like getting married, buying a car, buying a house, and ultimately it prevents us from participating fully in the Canadian economy, which is a huge issue at the moment. If elected Vice President External, I want to initiate conversations on our national lobby organizations to promote more coordination of our resources on the federal level so that it better affects our lower income and middle income students rather than the more affluent that don't need as much government assistance to attend post-secondary. Secondly, I want to regulate mandatory non-instructional fees during this 2-year freeze in order to ensure predictable costs for students and international students as well in regulating market modifiers and fees such as the cost fee and the international differential fee. Finally, I want to advocate for a per-student funding model for our mental health services.
15 seconds.
I think that it's appalling that the government hasn't announced that they're going to renew this funding that is so essential for every student that comes to the U of A, and with these services that are already increasingly strained. So my name is Patrick Kahina, and I'm running for Vice President External. Thank you.
Next candidate for Vice President External is Mike Sandari.
Hello everyone, so my name is Mike Sandari and I'm up here today because I'm more than just these gloves around my neck. I'm more than just a really good marketing campaign. I'm here because I have some issues with what's going on. I see issues that exist within the university. Things like, take for example the fact that Albertan students acquire the most debts out of any students in Canada. The fact that we just ran out of 3 years of mental health funding that's crucial for our services. The fact that, take for example the fact that we have the highest unemployment rate since 1996. Because of that, I'm running for 3 things. I want to make sure that we have a more affordable education. I want to make sure that we have better access to mental health services, and I want to make sure that we have student employment opportunities. When it comes down to the first one for affordable education, all of my ideas are realistic. Everything that I have is something that we can do within this year. I'm not saying that we can lower tuition, because if you look for the past 10 years, that hasn't happened. What has been done is a tuition freeze. What I want to do is I want to extend that tuition freeze. I want to extend that beyond just domestic students. I want to have that for domestic and international students as well. I want to make sure that we have a grant system, something that exists in every province except ours. I want to make sure that we have a funding framework so that universities are able to have stable funding for the next 5 or 10 years. When it comes down to mental health, what I want to do is I want to ask for more than just the money back. Yes, that is something I'm going to do, but I think that there should be something done in the interim. If any of you have read the mental health review that just came out by the provincial government, we are on the list, but we're not one of the 6 core things. Unfortunately, that means that for the next year, that's lobbying to get that money back. In the interim, what I want to do is make sure that the university still has access to quality care. I'm looking into community partnerships, partnering with associations such as the Canadian Mental Health Association, Alberta Health Services, for example, bringing their services here on campus. When it comes down to employment opportunities, I know that I'm not a decision maker. I'm an advocate. What I want to do is I want to push to expand the existing programs here at the university. Push to expand work experience programs, co-op programs, and all of that by...
Thank you, Mike. Your time is up.
Thank you very much, and please check me out at Time to Make It Mike.com.
Your last candidate for Vice President External is Reed Larson.
Hi everyone, my name is Reed Larson and I'm a candidate for Vice President External. I would like to thank everyone here for coming out, the other candidates for their speeches, and I would also like to recognize respectfully that we are speaking on Treaty 6 territory. Right now, thank you. My campaign has been focusing on getting out the vote. If many of you have noticed, I am terrible at making posters. Really, really bad at it. But what I am really, really, really good at is speaking with people. What I believe that I am very good at is projecting my voice and making sure that we are heard. On top of that, I really, really believe that getting out the vote is extremely important. I believe that successful representation of our student community begins with this vote. On top of that, if you will give me your vote and give me your confidence, I would like us to accomplish per student funding like other candidates for our mental health services.
I believe that a per student model is quite a bit more sustainable than the current lump sum payment model. However, we do require a single lump sum payment to make sure that our services come up to a baseline standard. After that, I would really like us to continue to focus on employment here in Alberta. There are plenty of opportunities for undergraduate students to get employment, but however, many of those opportunities are not open for all students. They are restricted to people who are Alberta residents. That means you have to live here in Alberta to take advantage of work here in Alberta. That makes sense, but the fact is you need to live here for a long time, and that doesn't make any sense. You should be able to come here and employ. Aside from that, I would also like us to focus on housing.
15 seconds.
Housing is extremely important. Tenants here do not have housing rights. They do not have tenants' rights under our Residential Tenancies Act. If you have lived in residence, you know the struggles of what it means to try and talk to the residents without
Thank you,
that
Reid.
external support.
Time's up.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Okay, Patrick, you are up first. 30 seconds to ask your opponents a question.
Alright, so my question to my opponents is, given that the SU is an organization that is built on the laurels of vice presidents past, we have our reading week that we had in November that happened because of multiple years of advocacy. So I want to ask, what is your short-term vision and what is your long-term vision for the SU during your term?
First to answer will be Reid and then followed by Mike.
My short-term vision for our Students' Union is to involve as many people as we possibly can in our voice. I've been talking with people all week about voter representation. Short-term, I believe, extremely short-term, I believe if we were all to come out and vote in these elections, it would be a signal to governments, provincial, national, and even municipal, that we need our agendas to be taken care of. We need the things that we are asking for to be priorities. In the rest of my year, in that short-term time span, I would really like us to focus on making sure that students are able to have their voices heard. That means that when we are talking about doing all of these platform points, that we take into account what students actually believe we should be doing at an external level. Long term, I really believe that we should continue to build on that voice and build momentum for things like platform. Thank you a lot for your time, and thanks for the questions.
First off, I would like to say thank you very much for that question. When it comes down to it, both my short-term and my long-term fall into, well, one category. I want to make sure that things are affordable. I want to make sure that we make real change right now. I want to make sure that when a VP External applies for their role and when they actually get that role, they're pushing for things that can actually happen within the year. That's what I want to make sure happens now. When it goes with things like partnerships, things like bringing mental health services here on campus so students have access, even though we have a cut in funding. When it comes down to long term, again, what I want to do is make sure that things are more affordable. By having a solid funding framework, that's something that covers everything from M&IFs to market modifiers. Because the idea is that if a university can predict their funding for the next 5 or 10 years, they don't need to raise costs for us. Because that's just something that exists.
15 seconds.
They know how much money they're working with and they know how much money they can budget. So as I was saying, my two visions are just affordability. I want to make sure that students can afford their education at every front. Thank you.
Patrick, you have 1 minute for a rebuttal.
So my short-term vision for my term, if elected, is regulating mandatory non-instructional fees. We have a 2-year freeze that the government has promised to review post-secondary education, and I think it is absolutely possible to get mandatory non-instructional fees under the legislation that protects us from undue increases. Secondly, in the long term, I believe it is really important to start talking to our national lobby organizations to talk about better focusing our limited resources to better affect our low-income and middle-income students. These are things like eliminating tax credits that don't take into account the needs that students have right now and benefit those that have the money to pay for school at the beginning. Now I want to increase long-term low-income grants and middle-income grants in order to enable students from vulnerable backgrounds and from backgrounds that are traditionally not represented here at the university in order to ensure long-term sustainability of this system. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Mike, you have 30 seconds to ask your opponents a question.
Okay. So I would just like to start this off with a little bit of a preamble. So, as
You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, sorry. So as we said before, university students here in Alberta usually accumulate about $28,000 in debt. That comes down to actually the highest debt of any students in the entire country. So my question is that all of us are touching on affordable education. Although, what I really want to know is, what is your newest idea? What is your most innovative idea? What can we really do to change students, or to help students now?
Patrick will be first to answer, followed by Reed.
I think my most innovative idea, and the one I'm most excited about, is talking to our governments, our federal government especially, to create a post-secondary learning act similar to the Canada Health Act that will regulate and help increase affordability and accessibility as a priority across the country. In the same way that if you get injured or sick in BC, you should expect the same level of care, or comparable level of care, in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, in Quebec, and in Newfoundland. Thank you.
As far as affordability goes, the most radical idea that I have, and I believe, although it isn't as interesting as everything else, is really just encouraging student voice and where we want our funds to go. When we talk about non-mandatory instructional fees, or when we talk about our tuitions, I find that most of us don't actually have any choice in where those fees go. I believe it should be something that is a referendum type idea. I believe that we should have a voice in how we go about spending our mandatory non-instructional fees. So that means implementing a system where all students can be asked on the day about why their tuitions would be going up. We've heard talk about apps, we've heard talk about technological advancements. I believe something like that would be possible for students. Thank you for the question, and I don't get it.
1 minute for rebuttal.
Thank you very much. When it comes to me, what I want to push for, again, are realistic goals. I know that education is something that is controlled by the province. That's something that's regulated by us here in Alberta. So going on with that, what I want to do is I want to look to needs-based grants. This is something that already exists. If we look beside us to Saskatchewan, Saskatchewan offers $250 per month for the entire degree for low-income students, and they offer $100 per month for the entire degree to middle-income students. This is something that already exists. In Ontario, there's 30% off the entire, 30% of all of tuition for every student, regardless of income. These are existing plans. These are things that provinces already have, something that we do not. That's what I want to push for. My radical idea may seem a little bit big, but it's something that already exists. Something that's there, something that we just have to bring here. Thank you.
Reed, now you have 30 seconds to ask your opponents a question.
My question for my opponents, and one that I am most curious about, is how do our opponents plan to represent students and their voices individually? I know that they would be advocating on behalf of all of us for their platform points, but what would they do if somebody asked them individually, specifically for something for them to talk about? What would there be a plan be about going about contacting their allies, or really pushing for those individual interests that we all may have? Thank you.
The first answer will be Mike, followed by Patrick.
Thank you very much for that question. So when it comes down to representing students individually, what I want to push for is that, well, first off, I want to start off with the fact that I understand the interdisciplinary aspect of the university. My first year was actually in sciences, then I switched to arts. While I was in my first year, I was a part of a club called Alberta SAB, which is actually an engineering club. Last year, I was an exec on a club called Isaac, which is, again, interdisciplinary. What we focused on is getting students employment. So when it comes down to it, I understand student issues because I've seen almost every side of the campus. I've been around, I've done more than just talk to students. I've been with students, and I've helped them through all of their issues throughout my degree. And that's something that I want to bring to this position. I want to make sure that the VP External isn't just a student voice on a macro level, but on a micro level as well. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. It's really great that you're really focusing on student representation. And I think it's extremely important for our student representatives to have that on the top of their agendas, which is why I've been elected 4 times to various representative positions. I've been the GSC counselor for Campus Saint-Jean, which is a multidisciplinary campus. I am currently the Vice President External of my campus, and I represent the interests of students in science, in engineering, nursing, in arts, and students from varying ages, from as young as 18, 17 years old to as old as 34, 40, who bring their children to school. And I think, given my lengthy experience in student government, I have the ability to reach out to those students and make sure that we're hitting all those different demographics that have concerns about the external portfolio. Thank you.
Reed, you have 1 minute for a rebuttal.
Thanks for the responses. What I believe is very, very important, and I believe that we would go about representing the interests of individual students is by encouraging them to understand the roles and what their students' union is doing for them. I really have found that an amazing amount of people do not know what the role of Vice President External would even be doing. I've spoken with hundreds of people over the last few days, and they don't even know that a single person, it all boils down to that single person who would be speaking on the behalf of provincial governments. Of course, we would receive the help of the rest of our students' union, but it really is that single person who goes to lobby meetings, and it really is that their voice is what's heard most often in MLA letters and all these sort of contacts. I really believe that if we can try and get everybody to understand exactly what this role is about, that they would understand that they can come to us and ask us to talk about things. That's how I believe we should go about doing that. I believe it can be done technologically and in a very, very efficient manner. Thank you again.
That wraps up the debate between candidates. We'll have audience questions now. There's a mic right in front of me if you want to line up. Please introduce yourself and the race that your question is for, and please address your question to one race only.
Hi, Shakiba. I have a question for the VP Academic race. So given my experience with faculty associations, one of the greatest obstacles that you face is, in terms of advocacy, is long-term transferability. So essentially every year there's a new representative elected, just like how you guys are running every year. And every team has a different goal, a different progress made, and each year you work hard, and like throughout one year you make progress, and then as soon as it's getting somewhere, it falls through the cracks, much like the goals that like motivated them in the first place. So my question is, what would you do if elected VPA to prevent this? Because currently there's clearly no policies or anything in the constitutions that help alleviate this, and like relying on the fact that a lot of the presidential candidates have previously served on the FA in the first place isn't exactly reliable, so I'm just wondering what you would do. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. First answer will be Marina, followed by Tom, and you have 1 minute for a response.
Hi Shakiba, thank you for the question. I know you're on ICE, so I'm sure you're very familiar with this problem. My solution is strengthening department associations and faculty associations. So like Shakiba mentioned, it is a problem that transition happens every year. And as good as it is that some VPs become president, that's not enough. If I'm elected VP Academic, I want to work with faculty associations to cater the transition specifically to their needs. So lots of faculties like arts and science, for example, we should be encouraging them to have really comprehensive transitions. And that could even be through inviting them more so to the student council retreat that already happens. But for programs such as medicine or pharmacy, they actually run on very different schedules, partly because they're out of the classroom a lot of the time. So if I'm elected, I want to strengthen department and faculties in their transition so they're well informed on every level of governance.
Tom, you have 1 minute.
Oh yeah, thank you for the question. In my platform, I talk specifically about this issue, about the operational challenges that arise from yearly turnover of leadership. One of the big things that I want to do is create a resource, a best practices manual for student representatives that would be applicable to all student representatives, including faculty associations, that would go over things like how to transition, how to make sure that you don't go financially delinquent, things like that. Absolutely agree, super important. Other thing I talk about is how we develop leadership and how student governance is a great area to focus on in terms of developing leadership. And I think that by refocusing on the support that these groups need to operate as well as they can, we will help address some of these operational challenges, which are inherent to student organizations. So that's a plan. Thank you.
Okay, next question.
Hi there, I'm David. I'm from law school, and I have a question for VP external candidates. I specifically have a concern about one point of one person's platform.
Please address your question to all candidates in the race.
I can do that, but I guess the platform point that I'm concerned about is National Post-Secondary Education Act. It is a provincial responsibility. We have division of powers in Canada, and the National Post-Secondary Act is more of a CFS policy than a CASA policy, and we are part of CASA. Their platform is Federal Provincial Education Accord between the province and the federal government. We know that could work because we've had accords on other topics. So I guess my question is, do you think it's really a good idea to have a National Post-Secondary Act, and why, or do you support the current CASA policy of a Federal Provincial Accord?
Thank you for the question. First to answer will be Reid.
That is a great question. To kind of summarize that whole statement, the Post-Secondary Learning Act is a provincial accord, and it already does exist. The Albertan government is the one responsible for post-secondary education. The idea of creating a national education legislation for post-secondary would kind of, completely overstep the provincial boundary. It would honestly be an interesting thing to do. On the national side of things, though, what can be done probably more effectively is to continue to work with boards to push the national government to really consider giving provincial governments more funding to build more buildings or to fund more programs. I'm not so certain that standalone legislation would be a great idea or something that could be accomplished in any sort of time frame. But thank you very much.
Next to answer is Mike.
I would like to say thank you for that question. When it comes down to it, a National Post-Secondary Act is something that I don't think can happen. When you look back into Canadian history, the BNA Act, the British North American Act, was established. The federal government took on part of healthcare, which is why they have partial control when it comes down to medical aid. When it comes down to education, it is a purely provincial thing. So I think it would be a huge overstepping of boundaries for provinces to try and, or for the federal government to try and take that power away from the provinces to create their own federal acts. When it comes down to it, what I would like to do is push for things like a funding framework, things that exist within the province, things like a grant system, things that provinces can actually do. That's what I want. I want realistic change. I want realistic things to happen in this year. Thank you.
Patrick, you have 1 minute to respond.
It's an excellent question, David. So my reasoning behind that is that right now we have a system where federal government support for post-secondary education, although it is strictly a provincial responsibility, is haphazard at best. With the change in government from conservatives to liberals, liberals conservative, you have the creation of tax credits, low-income grants, middle-income grants, that doesn't seem to have some sort of national vision for the way we want our post-secondary to be made. The problem being is that if we let that be, for example, with our healthcare, if one province prioritized that and the other one didn't, then we're punishing students simply because they were born into a province that doesn't value post-secondary education and access to that. So I believe that it's high time for someone, maybe not even the national government, some coalition of people to finally prioritize post-secondary education for the students that are underrepresented in this system. Thank you.
question.
Hi, my name is Bo, and my question is for the VPX candidates. I'm just wondering, given that the Students' Union advocates for fair and plentiful employment opportunities for students, I'm wondering how they feel about bodies like the Students' Union and CAUSE paying a significant amount of their employees significantly under the industry standard, and I'm wondering if they're going to do anything about that. Thanks.
Thank you for the question. First to answer will be Mike.
Thank you very much for that question. When it comes down to it, I feel like these are institutions that do need paid staff. When it comes down to CAUSE is an incredible institution that lobbies the provincial government, and that's something that we really need to help us as a single student union to get exactly what we want. Going on your point with employment opportunities, sorry, can I ask a question back, just so I can understand? Were you talking about our plans for employment opportunities, or just employment for staff?
I'm just wondering how you feel about the students' unions that advocate for fair employment opportunities, but at the same time pay significantly lower than industry standard for their own staff, like researchers and program coordinators.
Thank you for that question. And yeah, I do feel like we should have fair payments there. Part of it should, I think part of it should come from the government. When that comes down to it, like I was saying, I'm pushing for a funding framework. A funding framework is something that would allow the university to cover all of these costs. That would potentially help the students' union as well. So in my mind, I think that we should have paid staff that help us lobby these institutions, because we need that voice behind us.
Thank you, Mike. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Next to respond will be Patrick.
So thanks for your question, Bo. I absolutely believe that our provincial lobby organization, which is a coalition of different student unions from around the province, should be paying its staff a fair wage. I think we have to put our money where our mouth is. If we're asking for the government to pay students equitable wages, and if we're asking for the government to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, the least we could do is show initiative on our part and pay our students that are putting in the hard work and producing the research that we use to lobby these people, at least that wage that we're asking the government to do for the rest of the province. Thank you.
Reid, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Bo. Without a doubt, we should pay our advocacy groups and our people who do our research for us industry standards. And the fact is that if we pay those standards, we can start to set those standards. We can be the people that say this is what students should be paid in these roles. I think you're talking about policy analysis, and I really do believe that if we have people who are doing that type of work, we can be the people that say people coming out of university need to be paying this wage. It's quite obvious that if we paid a little bit more, maybe we could encourage more students to work for that sort of position. And we could also encourage students to go into those positions instead of finding employment outside of their area of interest. So without a doubt, we should pay our students, employees, as much as possible, and as frequently as possible. But thank you very much for the question. Have a good one.
This is for VP Academic. It seems to me that a lot of these platform points are predicated on the idea that professors and faculties aren't doing their jobs as well as they should be doing them, and that somehow 22-year-old SU candidates can make them do their jobs better. Right? It's a narrative I just don't buy. To me, sort of an ideal VP Academic would be conservative regarding the classroom and regarding degree programs, right? I think we should trust our instructors. I think we should trust our professors for what they do. They're professionals. I also want to talk about flexibility and customizability of degrees. What's happening right now with the Bachelor of Arts is that the Faculty of Arts is thinking of getting rid of the basic requirements and replacing them with what are called thematic pathways, right? No one's quite sure what these are at this point. They seem to me to be suggestions of classes that students should take, but not really being requirements, right? So, yeah, I think if there is too much flexibility, too much customizability, it might be detrimental to first-year students, right, coming into the university who don't know what the university is, you know. And I can tell you many instructors and professors in the Faculty of Arts disagree profoundly with this new BA structure, okay? I must also say that many of these platform points happen to align very well with what admin wants education to be. I don't think education is a priority for admin.
Are you getting to a question?
Yeah. It's good. I think that admin's #1 priority is getting students to pay tuition, right? Sometimes even at the expense of education. So my question is, how will you accomplish your goals without pissing off a lot of faculty and instructors, particularly in the Bachelor of Arts, or in the Faculty of Arts?
Thank you for the question. First to answer will be Tom.
Thank you for the question. I hope I can address all the points. In terms of how well a professor should be doing their job, like that is a tricky question. I'm certainly not trying to tell instructors if they're doing a good job or not. I think that there are fundamental challenges between asking a professor to be a world-class researcher and to teach a 100 level class. I think these are fundamental challenges to how they spend their time. And so that's the sort of thing that I want to address in terms of quality education. How do we make sure that the student voice is strongly in favor of making these changes that really should happen? And sorry, can you say what the other questions were? Okay, yeah. So for example, with the arts structure that's happening, as Vice President Academic, I don't think that it would be my job to inject my own thoughts, but instead to make sure that the right discussions are happening. Is the faculty association being consulted properly? Are students being consulted properly? Are the discussions that are happening intelligent and informed? And are the feedback that the administration is getting, is that being respected? Thank you.
Hi Josh, thanks for your question. I'm going to address it in 2 parts. So first, the BA review. I've actually been involved in the consultation process for this for many years as I'm an arts student myself. So it's my understanding that the faculty is looking into departments creating their own requirements. So right now, you have to take breadth and diversity courses. And some students like this, some students don't. We need to make sure that the departments are creating specific things that work for their students. So for example, in English or political science, their required courses are specialized for that program. In terms of telling professors to do their job, I think teaching quality is very important, and we need to make sure teachers prioritize teaching as well as research. One of the things we can do is work with the Students' Union submission to the Strategic Institutional Plan, which will be fortified in June, to make sure we're looking into teaching tenure. That means that professors that want to do research can, and professors that want to place more importance on teaching can also investigate that. Thanks for the question, Josh.
And last question.
Hi, my name is Henry, and this question is for the VP Externals. And it's about basically your plans on mental health, because I'm a third-year student, right? And then every year we talk about mental health, but there is obviously not that much improvement, because we can all agree that every year we kind of witness a tragedy in some way. So I want to know, it's easy to use like words like awareness and whatever, but I want to know like what you guys are doing differently this year, basically.
Okay, thank you for the question. So first to answer will be Patrick.
That's an excellent question. And I think the issue is that we usually tackle this issue in a very siloed manner, in the sense that we all know on the stage that mental health mostly falls under the portfolio of Vice President of Student Life. And there are some candidates in the Vice President of Student Life race that say, I'm only going to be dealing internally. But what I really liked that I saw this year was our current Vice President of Student Life was able to advocate for something that she really cared about, which is mental health. And in collaborating with the VP External, we were able to achieve getting that funding for our mental health services that are already increasingly strained, and we need to ask for more. And if elected, what I'll do different is truly collaborate with whoever is elected the Vice President External, or Vice President of Student Life, in order to ensure that we have the funding on one end, and the efficiency and the centralization, perhaps, of the services on the other end, to better address student concerns and to better promote prevention strategies, so we don't have to witness or get to the point where we're seeing these tragedies. Thank you.
Next to respond is Mike.
Thank you very much for that question. When it comes down to it, what I want to do is make sure that the VP External is doing more than just asking for money. Yes, that is one of our biggest, that is one of the most important things with our roles. That is one of our most important responsibilities, and that is something that I'm going to do. What I'm going to be doing differently in the next year is that I want to push for community partnerships. I want to push so that the university is able to partner with organizations such as the Canadian Mental Health Association, with Alberta Health Services, with the Sport Network, with the various mental health organizations, not just within the city, but within the province, and bring either their services here on campus so that we're still able to provide the same quality of care despite our lack of funding, or push to subsidize students to go out to their services. Because I understand that's a business decision. I understand that as VP External, I'm an advocate.
15 seconds.
I'm not a decision maker, but what I can do is fight for the right things. Thank you.
Last to respond is Reid.
Thank you for the question, Henry. What I believe for Vice President External to do for mental health services funding is to continue to talk about these issues. I think, I am sorry, I said mental health services funding. I mean just mental health services in general. To keep bringing it up. To bring it up in lobby meetings, to bring it up in our letters, to bring it up in our day-to-day occurrences. And quite obviously to work with the rest of the students' unions to accomplish a well-functioning mental health services in general. However, for Vice President External, I really do believe that a per-student funding model, along with immediate relief of one more lump sum payment, would be the way that we continue to build those services fundamentally and as well as sustainably, right? Right now, lump sum payments every year do not really translate into long-term sustainable development. Along with that, it would be a review process of our own services that is both quantitative and qualitative to make sure that student voice is heard within those measures themselves and not just a measure of how many people are using the services. I think that's how we move ahead with Vice President External with this example.
Thank you, Reid.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you everyone for the questions. That wraps up our forum for today. Don't forget to come to the Meyer Horowitz Forum. It's happening on Monday at noon in the Meyer Horowitz Theater, which is just on the main floor of this building. All classes will be canceled for that forum between 12 and 1. And lastly, don't forget to vote on Wednesday, March 2nd and Thursday, March 3rd at suvotes.ca. And you'll all receive an email courtesy of the elections office early on Wednesday with information on how to vote. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a good rest of the day.
Good job.
Yeah.